Before diving in, this video is sponsored by Ridge Wallet, link down below for 10% off your purchase. The video will also be available ad-free in an audio podcast form on locals.com. Basically a Patreon alternative where I am much more active and you can reach me for feedback. And my entire content library is available on Odyssey, which is a YouTube alternative for those that want to branch out from the platform. Okay, today's video is going to probably get torn to shreds in the comment section and the like to dislike bar because just like the title says, it's going to be a long-form explanation of why I absolutely hate Genshin Impact. The only problem there is that the game is wildly popular. Something like 5 million new players were added in just 5 days, which could be easily tracked with their mail reward system. It's still growing with meteoric potential, and the real truth is that I don't hate all of it. The game actually has real personality at certain points, and there is undeniably some fun to be had, but there are a number of areas that have made it so that I really can't stand the title. And I also view it to be a troubling evolution on, or combination of, gaming genre mechanics that I've had a problem with for quite some time. I want to be very, very clear though, this is not an attack on anyone who individually enjoys the game. This is an explanation of why I myself, on a purely personal and subjective level, hate the game. I am not saying that anyone else must or should. It's exceptionally popular, so I am already very clearly a minority in this particular area, and guide content for this title is exploding in view count, which gives me every single possible incentive to just suck it up and make some content anyway, but I can't. I just can't, because there are too many systems and mechanics that are, in my view, either shallow, predatory, or flat out oppressive, which make the game something I really just don't want to support right now. The operative word being now, because that could change depending on how they handle future updates, like the 1.1 overhaul that has been announced by the developers aimed at addressing one of my and many other players' core concerns. Without further ado, let's really get started. Genshin Impact is a viral free-to-play open-world exploration gacha RPG with boss battles, gear acquisition, dungeons, stat progression, and a whole bunch more. Surface-level impression, that sounds really, really good. And it kind of is when you first begin, but after a couple of hours, the veil of mystery begins to fade, and after a few more, it falls apart completely. The first major gripe that I have with the title, and keep in mind, again, this is a personal gripe, this is not indicative of the wider player base necessarily, and also keep in mind that this is not based on hundreds of hours of playtime. Relatively speaking, the game has not been out all that long, but I don't anticipate this changing to any meaningful degree in the future, outside of perhaps very specific boss battles, challenges, or encounters in future update content. But anyways, the first major gripe is actually a giant positive that became a negative as soon as I figured out what my actions really were, and that is the elemental combos. Now, I know what many people will immediately think. Come on, man, the elemental combos are fun. Why would that ever be a negative? You're insane. And at first, yes, the elemental interactions are visceral. They make you feel powerful. They are a critical component of the core combat. And it feels like a net positive at first, until I realized something. Most elemental interactions are beneficial to you. Some not so much, but most of the time switching characters will give you a beneficial combo effect if you're using their abilities. And once you structure your team of 4 in a way that allows for multiple of these interactions to take place, priming and then detonating enemies or whatever your choices may be, the gameplay fundamentally changes. I noticed fairly early that the cycle is almost, and keep in mind here, the skill ceiling for gear choices and stat allocation is fairly high, but the general combat cycle in terms of gameplay itself has almost no depth. In standard combat encounters, unless saving your elemental ultimate abilities for a fight on the horizon, very near in the future, the loop is incredibly simple and quickly becomes boring. It genuinely comes down to a simple cycle of characters, firing whatever ultimate abilities off cooldown and charged. That's basically it. Now, you will make choices on who your party contains, but the resource progression system is, how do I say this properly, intentionally restrictive. I think that's the best way to phrase it. More on that later, because right now that might seem fine, but the problem that you will probably run into, unless you are a literal god of farming, in which you are totally fine and you might love the game, but the problem you will likely run into is that you don't have enough resources to raise a bunch of characters to competitive and powerful levels. Instead, you will most likely need to prioritize. That's fine, or at least it would be, if the core combat was not just a cycle of press 1, 2, 3, or 4, then maybe cast your secondary, rinse, repeat. The problem is not either one of these things alone, the problem is the combination. If you had enough resources to bring a bunch of characters up to a caliber where they could complete on-level content, or at the very least be useful in on-level content, when you could rotate them in and out or whatever you want to do, you could actually play with the combos and tailor a party to different circumstances. The potential is there, but because, at least in my own experience, you'll be more so choosing carefully where to dump most of your resources, it puts you in a stagnant cycle of combat where you just keep casting 4 of the same abilities, while interspersing the other 4, and whatever comes up, you probably just cast it and move on blindly. That's a small thing, but it's just the beginning because it feeds back in on itself when you get to the later stages of the game. However, before getting to my other points, you need a Ridge wallet. Fat wallets in your back pocket cause hip problems. It's a scientific fact. There's a bunch of stuff you don't need in there, and this ad is going to be kind of simple and clean because Ridge itself is simple and clean. Guaranteed for life, high quality materials, tens of thousands of 5-star reviews, genuine ones, not like Raid Shadow Legends or other fraudulent mobile games that buy reviews. They let you test it for 45 days and then send it back if you aren't satisfied. I have used one since the very first time they sponsored the channel, and I'm never going back. There are tons of colors and designs to choose from, room for 12 cards plus cash with either a strap or a clip, and I'm thrilled to endorse them. Incredibly happy with the wallet itself, and also delighted to say that they are offering our entire community 10% off your order if using the link down below and entering code Upper Echelon. Again, that's code Upper Echelon for 10% off your order when using the link down below. Big thank you to them for sponsoring the channel. The second issue I have with Genshin Impact is short and very concise. Wishes are loot boxes. Now, there is a necessary acknowledgement to be made here. The game is free to play, so it's not like you have progression-based loot boxes on top of a $60 game, but wishes really are full-on gameplay-affecting forms of loot boxes, with an incentive program to purchase 10 instead of just 1 or 2. Side note, if you do choose to play Genshin Impact, always save up to 10 before buying them with the currency you earn in the game. It may take longer, but it's worth it. My third issue is probably the largest. Now, the second one was concise and by itself isolated, maybe nothing, but the third one in tandem, that's what really, blows the thing out of the water. Now, it would be unfair to discuss this problem without also acknowledging that the developers have stated that they are working on fixing or changing the system. How much? I don't know. Will it be better? I don't know, but as it stands, the system is absolutely horrific and largely contributes to why I currently hate this game. The system is Resin, and to understand exactly what Resin is, we need to look at the mobile market more broadly. Mobile gaming has a very common tactic where they will throttle progression down to a crawl and try to force you to spend real-world currency just to overcome artificially installed barriers. This can happen with ads, make you watch them between battles or when switching menus like Raid Shadow Legends does. This can happen with gear, barring all the best items behind loot boxes, something that Genshin Impact already does. Or this can happen with energy, where you only get a certain number of actions or battles per day, and you must pay real-world money to keep going. That's what Resin is, except it feels even worse because Genshin Impact is like some sort of maniacal bridge between the mobile industry and PC. Genshin Impact truly feels like a mobile game got stretched out to near AAA level and scale, while keeping almost everything that sucks about mobile gaming, and now it's serving the exact purpose it was designed to, which is bridging the gap and normalizing these monetization methods in a way that has not been achieved before on this platform. Resin is almost evil. Why? Because it's extremely restrictive. It bars a large amount of the best activities in the entire game behind a time gate, and it simultaneously bars a large amount of the best gear behind a time gate as well. And as you level, you are awarded with fragile resin, which can be used to recharge your reserves and keep grinding, but without further research and the knowledge that this resin is insanely valuable and should be saved, without question, to later stages of the game to increase its value and yield, many players will likely waste it early on and end up screwing themselves over. It's not a new tactic, but it's particularly obvious here. The whole system is a gauntlet of tedium designed to make you pay money. This by itself, I might be more forgiving. The progression-based loot boxes by themselves, I might be more forgiving, but they both exist simultaneously, and the resin system is too much to ignore. The issue really comes from the idea of incentive versus coercion. I'm fine with the game setting you up with rewards to buy, for the most part, but Genshin Impact is not setting you up with rewards, it's shutting you down and stopping you from playing the way you want, or even playing at all, completing the activities you enjoy, or leveling up quickly unless you pay real money. Now, remember the first issue of character progression and elemental combat? Even when you begin a fresh account and the quests are rolling in, the discoveries, the XP, all of it, you still need to slow down and figure out which characters to prioritize. Later on, this gets compounded tenfold, and that initial cycle of just always spamming your ultimate abilities becomes something you are entrenched in for long periods of time with the same characters, unless you pay real money or return to previous activities that are not endgame level rewards and feel distinctly less worthwhile. Feeding into this is the idea of adventure rank. Adventure rank is actually a cool system in terms of its base functionality for the most part. Genshin Impact actually makes a lot of really good choices when it comes to innovating on the standard forms of experience gain. The whole thing is basically like that scene from, I think, Family Guy, where they're trying to trap somebody and he goes, ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece. And he just keeps going all the way down the road. The whole game is basically that. And it's not a bad thing. In a lot of ways, it's a really good thing. However, even though the system of book rewards and variable selection of where to dump resources and all of those different rewards that you get from chests in the open world, all of it is positive at its core, the issue is that adventure rank slows down substantially later on. And it appears, I could be wrong, I'm not an expert, I could be farming less optimally and other people are much better, but it appears that the open world chests are one of the only free methods of raising this adventure rank with any real consistency in the entire game. I'm not fully there, but the picture is forming rather quickly. I'm not at this particular point just yet, but true endgame, I'm talking the real endgame, yeah, it's about 10 minutes a day. And I already know that's what I have to look forward to. I'm not kidding. Logging in for 10 minutes-ish per day, because you can't do hardly anything else, let alone things that are proportionally rewarding, and knowing that my future is that cycle of either opening my wallet, spending a bunch of real money, or effectively not getting to play, or farm, or have fun. Yes, it makes me hate this game right here, right now. Here's the worst part, and really it is absolutely the worst part. I have not spent any money as of yet, but if I project a hypothetical forward, what is the actual result of spending money? Would you spend all of it on an energy meter that gets depleted at sickeningly fast rates per activity and you're just back to not being able to play the game again? Or would you just dump it right into the Wish loot boxes? The answer for many people is going to be the loot boxes, because that, at its core, is primarily what a gacha game is about, which in reality is what Genshin Impact really is, even if it somehow manages to portray itself as an open-world RPG akin to Breath of the Wild, which it really isn't. Genshin Impact is raking in the money right now, and that's both good and bad. The developers might change things to make the endgame less of a prison, really, that tries to force you to pay, and they might turn it into something more forgiving with later updates. However, I don't think I can sit here with a high degree of confidence and say that I believe it will go down that way. In the beginning, the game feels fun. Free to play, fun for a decent number of hours. It's hard to hate that, it really is, but as soon as you realize that the gameplay contains a healthy amount of artificial depth, there are progression-based loot boxes, to be expected, it's a gacha game, but it's topped off with a system that basically tells you, nope, you don't get to play any of the good stuff anymore, pay up. Yes, I have begun to hate that. If this was purely relegated to phones, like so many other similar titles, I would never have even noticed it, but it's sweeping through the PC market as well. It's entering the wider gaming space with a very well-crafted facade that will rope players into a large, open world, only for that world to be effectively taken away if they don't open their wallets. Combine that with whatever normal gameplay or progression concerns I already had, and that's why I hate Genshin Impact. I am witnessing right now a tremendous incentive to cover the title. Guide videos from experienced YouTube channels who delve into the endgame content are receiving millions upon millions of views. And if this resin system didn't exist, if I was able to assemble a wider range of heroes without paying boatloads of real-world cash, or bring them up to a competitive level without sacrificing disproportionate amounts of time and money, I would probably love the game, not even kidding. I'd be covering it non-stop. The art style isn't typically my favorite, but there's a lot to love here. It's got undeniable personality. However, there's just too much baggage, and I simply can't bring myself to endure all of it right now. It's a goldmine of content potential with a rapidly expanding audience, a skyrocketing player base, and a world of future content on the horizon. I just look at it with a sadness and anger, knowing that the bridge between mobile gaming and the PC market has never, ever in my lifetime been stronger than it is right now because of this game. The success here will increase the receptivity towards these practices by other companies, other games, and a lot of players. And whatever future content they produce could very easily be slotted into an existing oppressive framework that tries to club you into submission with an open wallet. But that's just my take. I know this one is ripe for people to freak out and scream in the comment section. I get it, but I hope this accurately expresses why I personally, subjectively, truly do hate Genshin Impact, even though there is a lot to love. The good is totally overpowered by the bad, in my view, and that really sucks to see. But that's it. If you want to support, there's links down below. Merch, other social media, locals, where other content forms are, Odyssey, Ridge with 10% off your entire order with the link down below and code Upper Echelon, as well as another gaming YouTuber to support if you want to check him out. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching and have a nice night.